Hello and welcome back to OC Avery and welcome back to the Natives in Norwich Zoom Room. Now today we are joined by Mr. Jerry Kidd and we focus on the native softbills, which in his words are easier than the hardbills. Although a bird that is not commonly kept compared to the hardbills, I think that there's something that a lot of us fanciers should get into is keeping some of these softbills, which we're going to learn about today and look at in Jerry's setup. Now these include nuthatches, great spotted woodpeckers, white wagtails or pied wagtails, skylarks, tree creepers, all sorts of things. So plenty for you to learn about today. We're going to learn about how to breed them and how to keep them and different experiences that Jerry has had over the past few years of keeping these softbills. Now, just before we go into it, I'd like to say a huge thank you to Dotty Reel for sponsoring these videos, which we do, and the Natives in Norwich Zoom Room, and the group as well as itself. Obviously, Dotty sponsors all the Natives in Norwich sort of themed things. So big thank you to Dotty there, and I'd also just like to quickly say thank you to Jerry for doing this interview, and also just thank you to everyone behind the scenes who is helping out. You know, not taking anything away from anyone, but especially Mac Finch. You've put a lot of effort in, so huge thank you for just getting in contact with people. But anyway, I hope you enjoyed today's video, and I'll see you after it. Hello and welcome back to the Natives in Norwich Zoom Room. Now today we've got a special episode on softbills, specifically native softbills, and we're joined by Mr. Jerry Kidd. So thank you for joining us, mate. Would you please like to introduce yourself and tell us a bit about the birds you keep?
I'm Jerry Kidd. I'm a bird man in Dublin. I've been breeding birds all my life. I keep now softbills. I have a range of from red starts to blackbirds, and I got in just last year. I got in some woodpeckers and nightingales. Haven't bred them yet, but hopefully. I have a whitetails, nuthatches. Just working on them all at the moment. But was successful with some. Okay.
Yep, that's brilliant. So when did you first begin keeping birds, and what were your first birds?
Well, it's a long story. I got my first bird was a goldfinch, and I got it in the Dublin market, which I didn't know it was a Dublin market at the time. We were about 10 or 11, and hanging up as we went into town, skipping from mass, and Sunday morning, and we seen all these lads putting birds up on the wall, and we start looking at them, and you were talking about the price of them and all, and I seen the goldfinch and I couldn't believe a bird could be that colour. So I asked the man for one, and he bent down and took it out, his hand threw a stocking in a box and handed me one, which was a paper. I didn't know the difference at the time, and I paid him a shilling. And that was my first introduction to birds, but the bird was dead the next morning.
Oh damn! Wow.
Yeah, I didn't know what I was doing, you know.
Yeah.
A few weeks after that, we kept going down in that time, and I ended up buying a pair of budgies down at the market, and I bought a box off one of the fellas as a cage, and I brought that home and put it up in the bedroom wall, and that's how I started with birds. I've had birds ever since.
Fantastic. You know? Yeah, well, I mean, a bit of a heartbreaking start, but you've definitely kept at it, so that's brilliant. Now, when did you first start keeping softbills, and what was your first pair of softbills?
I'm only in softbills about 6 years, because I stopped breeding parrots all my life, and up to that I was breeding border canaries and natives up to in the 60s, 70s, early 80s, and going to shows and all that. But softbills I started 6 years ago. I started off with some foreign, which then I decided through my son, who shows birds at the moment. He asked me to start, and I went in. I got a pair of skylarks, song thrushes, and bearded reedlings. That's how I started with the natives.
Fantastic. Yeah, so quite a mix actually of the small and large softbills to begin with.
Yeah.
Brilliant. Now, obviously, this is a bit of a quite a wide open question, but could you just tell us what makes a softbill different to a hardbill?
Uh, but Softbills will eat seed anyway. So
Yeah.
in the winter. Now the difference is softbills. Most softbills will migrate, are migrating birds, and they need longer life in the winter and
Yeah.
more food. They need at least 12 hours because that's why they migrate. It's not for the warmth. You can keep them in a bird room or in outside. Some of mine stay outside for the winter, but they need a longer bit of light. Some of them, you know,
Got
and
you.
for it's the food that keeps them going. Uh, Between the difference with the seed eaters and I think the seed eaters are more native. They don't migrate. They live normal around the.
Yes.
You don't have the same problem with the lighting system with them.
Got
That's
you.
the only difference I see in them. You know.
Yeah, no, fair enough.
Yeah.
Now, we just touched on this, but so what would you say are the main differences between keeping a hard bill and keeping a soft bill? So we'll take a goldfinch, for example. How would you treat that differently to a
Yeah.
redstart?
Well, like the soft bills, most of them can be bred in cages. Or the hard bills. The soft bills are mostly you're better off. I don't know many people that breed them in cages. They all have to be kept in flights. I keep mine in planted flights. I keep them in big flights. But you can breed one or two pair in a 6 foot by 3 foot flight. You could have the skylarks and a pair of reedlings, or one pair of blackbirds in smaller flights. I have mixed flights, but I still keep me blackbirds separate because they would attack the youngsters, you know.
Yeah.
So you do have to keep them in separate, and if you give them different food altogether, you know. So it's, a lot of people think it's harder to keep the soft bills, but I find it's easier to
Oh,
keep them, you
right.
know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, fair enough. So what is the general diet of your soft bills, and what soft bill mix do you give them?
Okay. I've tried a few, but about 3 or 4 years ago, I started with slates, and I find it's a great mix. It's moist. There's a lot of stuff in it, and I find my boards anyway. And a lot of fellas are starting to use it now. But I had tried everything else, and the only problem is I used to get it in Stafford. I
Right.
couldn't get it here, and then I got a fella that does frozen foods start getting it in for me. But I know now that uh, Dottie over in Avian World has got it in
Yes.
because I mentioned it to him, and he has got it in stock now. Which I used to have to order it a month in advance off this other lad who used to bring it in for us. And if you were anyway running short, it was a disaster, you know, which happened to me earlier in the year, and I had to get other soft food, and I was trying to change them back and change. And then I ended up when I got me slate stuff, I had to start mixing the two together to get them back to normal. So
Yeah.
now that's going to be in stock now, it's better, you know. But as well as using that mix, I also use every second day, or maybe once a week in the winter, or every second day in the breeding season. I make up a mince of broccoli, carrot, cheese, and couscous, and I blend them in a mincer, and I put a scoop of them into every fly. Every bird gets the same. I don't give particular food to particular species, you know.
Yeah.
But within the mixed flights and even in their single flights, they all get the same. They all get a good scoop of that. Depends on the amount of birds in this flight.
Got
In
you.
the winter, I'd give them a handful of uh, mixed mealworm and frozen pinkies. I just throw that on the floor, and I do that in every aviary so that they all will pick it up themselves. I don't just leave it in the bowl because somebody will dominate the bowl, you know. But if
Yeah.
you just throw it in a handful, some birds will jump in and get it before the other birds start chasing them around, you know.
Yeah. Got you.
And that's what I do with that, you know. So I also give them some crickets, and I've just started at the moment using this hubia. Uh,
All right.
what's a roach, like a cockroach, and
Yes.
I'm trying to breed them at the moment. They breed easier than the crickets, you know.
Yeah. I got you. So, how often are you giving this sort of live food through the off season?
In the off season, I'd only give them the vegetable mix or the fruit mix. I
Right.
do leave an apple and an orange in there, half of each, and they all eat that in every fly. But the mixed broccoli and carrot in the winter, I'd only give them that once a week just to keep them used to it.
Yeah.
In the breeding season, every second day, because this weather you could leave it 3 or 4 days. It's so cold, but every second day or maybe every day if the weather gets really warm, you know,
Yeah.
I give them that, you know.
Got you. Brilliant. Um, so, uh, so what sort of types of live food are you using then?
As I say, I'm using the mealworm and frozen crickets, uh, frozen pinkies and crickets, and any of the insects you can get frozen
Yeah.
does well. But it's great to get it live. At the moment, I'm trying to breed live stuff, but it's not that easy. You
Got
know?
you. No, fair enough. So obviously you're sticking to the more easily available stuff than stuff
At
that's a
the moment,
nightmare to get hold of. Yeah.
yeah.
Um, so you said that about you trying to breed them. So do you try and breed all of your own live food, or is it mainly just
I
buying it in as often as can?
no, I have mealworm on the go at the moment. It's not easy. It's time is the problem. I realise it's changing from the beetle to the tray so the mealworm will grow. If you leave the beetle in too long, I only realised that this winter. If you leave her in more than 24 hours, the beetles will actually eat the eggs.
Oh
So if you
right.
train the beetles off and keep getting smaller, and then I have 2 trays, thank God, coming on now of live mealworm. You know, uh,
Right.
the crickets are another thing. There, you keep them in a fairly deep basket or plastic basket with egg crates and load of fruit, and you have to keep them at a certain temperature. Uh, they have I have bred them once, but for some reason, I think it's the temperature or the mix of their. You put a small plastic container in and they lay the eggs in that.
Yeah.
I haven't been that successful with them. I'm only trying these the cockroaches or hubia roaches, not the actual cockroach, although they look like them. Uh, I'm only trying them over the past 2 months. They will lay all the time. Uh, you will get very small to big. You can let them grow anytime. They won't eat their young. They don't jump around like crickets. So it's easier to get them out and to feed them. And you can feed them at any size. You can let them grow bigger, whatever size you want to throw into the flight. And the different size birds will take the different size ones. You know.
Brilliant.
And
Yeah. No.
I only heard about them this winter. You know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, fantastic, mate. That, I mean, I guess that works really ideal as well. Breeding your own. I imagine it's much cheaper, although it is,
It saves
you
you
know.
a lot of money if you get it all going. You know.
Yeah,
One of my
definitely.
friends that uses Softbills done the crickets during the winter, and he just kept taking them out and putting them into the freezer. And he has trays of crickets frozen,
Re-
keeping them going through the whole breeding season now. You know,
Yeah.
it
Oh,
saves a lot of money.
fantastic.
You know,
Definitely. So how do you condition your soft bills? Obviously, how does this differ with each species, and obviously, how does it differ from the hard bills?
again, having them in mixed flights, I don't uh, treat them differently for the. I give them a vitamin coming into the start, and I keep it going through the breeding season, and then ease off because sometimes it leaves them too uh, fit and ready, and they might start wanting to go too fast all the time. I
Yeah.
use Breed Max, which I discovered up Stafford as well about 3 or 4 years ago, but it went off the market apparently for a while. Again, a couple of people couldn't get it in for me. It's expensive, and Dottie has got it in. Apparently, he rang me to say he has it. Where he got it, I don't know, because the fellas in England couldn't get it for me. You know,
Yeah.
so that's right. That's the only vitamin I give them. I don't mix something else. You know, just that, and I don't give much treatment. I find with treatments, I lost me nightingale cock, and I was treating that. I gave it some Baytril, gave it the usual dose, and then I put it onto uh, probiotics, and it was never right since the day I got it, and I had it for about 3 months. The hen is beautiful, but the cock eventually died on me just before the breeding season, which is the
Oh,
things you don't want to happen. No.
yeah. Oh, that's unlucky.
Yeah,
So you actually don't try and keep medications and supplements to a minimum then?
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Oh,
I find with medications, it's harder when a bird is sick like that, and you're trying all the different medications. It never gets around to breeding. The bird is never good enough for breeding. I find. No, that's my
Yeah.
opinion. You know.
No, fair enough. I'm going to say, obviously, with the hardbills and what, it is a different situation. Like greenfinches, for example, you've got to get them on coccidiosis or they're dropping.
Yeah, yeah.
But yeah, so when it comes to actually breeding your softbills, then they're notoriously can be quite tricky when pairing them up. You know, you can get one partner will kill the other, for example. Now, how do you get round that?
It's not easy. It's not easy. Uh, 2 years ago, I got red starts, which are a great bird. Very, very. Once you know when you know what to do with them.
Yeah.
The first year, the cock did kill a hen. Second year, the guy I bought them off does have the same trouble. But what I done was I put them in two separate flights. I put about an 18-inch door hatch between the two flights,
Yeah.
and the cock will pick the box. It's just like a cockatiel box or something. I have a few of them around. I put all different types of nest pads and half boxes and all in for the different species, and they'll all pick what they want. But the hen, when she sees the cock looking in and out of this box, she'd start coming to. I have a perch under the door, and there were two big flights. She kept coming to that, and so I opened that. She came in, and like that, they were paired, and that was it. She laid 6 eggs, reared 6 youngsters, 3 cocks and 3 hens, and I thought this is easy. This year, I put them the same cock and hen in. I put the cock in, but I had the other flight full, so I put her into a holding cage, which is like a 2-foot square cage on the wall.
Yeah.
Then looking at the box, seeing her, with the fact that she was only in a cage, I didn't see what she done last year coming straight over to the wall. She was going to the perch nearest the wire, and I said, "Oh, she's ready," and they know each other. There, in the next morning, she was killed. He killed her, you know. And they're the ones that bred me 6 youngsters last year, and they only bred once a year the red starts, you know.
Got you.
I learned the lesson this year.
Wow. Yeah, hard work then. That's a shame, isn't it? Is that
if you watch what you're doing, you know, it was my own fault. You know, I done it wrong. I done it right last year. I was too cocky this year, and it didn't work. You know.
No, fair enough. Is that just with your red starts then, or have you had issues like that maybe with blackbirds or skylarks?
The blackbirds, the cocks can be. With the thrushes first, I bred them a few years ago. Got some lovely ones off them, and I ended up selling them all because the guy wanted a breeding pair as well as the youngsters. But I found the cock taking the youngsters out after they hatched, and lucky enough, I seen him doing it, and I put them back in and separated him. But he did after I let him back in while she was feeding them, and he went back feeding them. But at the start, when he seen them, I think he might have thought they were maggots or something small. He just kept picking them out. But the same thing happened with the blackbirds this year. Last year, the blackbirds were great. They went down. The last year, they got beautiful young. They were mutation, the blackbirds. It was a blue cock and a satin hen. Now, mutations today is different to what I had when I was breeding in the 70s and 80s. It was either white or a blue or variegated. But now I believe I got this, the black cock I had was a blue, it was silvery grey. And the white had a pink eye, I would call her a white pink eye, or a Latino. But they call it a satinette, I don't know why.
Yeah.
So I put the two of them together, and I got 3 cocks out of it. One was the satinette, as they call it, and the other was to me, it was silver variegated, beautiful birds. But they call them grizzlies now, which I've never heard before.
Yeah.
So the guy that sold me the breeding pair went mad to get them back. So I sent them back to him. So I did say to him, "You give me the youngsters off them this year, and I'll put them back to our grandparents and see what I get." You know.
Yeah.
But I'm not well up on the mutation, as I know you're going to ask me about.
Yeah. No, fair enough, mate. I guess it's not obviously the genetics and the mutation beside is not for everyone. You know. Now we've seen you keep woodpeckers. Obviously, you mentioned that you only got them last year. You know, how do these compare to other softbills?
They're great, but the only problem is I ended up with all cocks.
Oh no! How many have you got?
It was a long story. I bought a pair from Holland, off. I thought it was a breeder, and it turned out he wasn't a breeder. And he sent me 2 young birds. The young woodpeckers have a full red head. They molt out, the hens goes all black, and the cock has a red patch on his back. So they all on the back of his neck. So the 2 cocks turned out like that. And I rang him, sent him an email, and I said, look, he sent me 2 cocks. Says he, it was a mistake. He said, I have 2 hens here. I said, well, I'll send you one back. You send me one. He turned out and said, I'll send you the 2 hens. So I sent him the money for the, oh yeah, he said he needed 2 hens at a half price. I sent him the money. I was saying, this is great, I'll have 2 pair. And then the day it arrived, he said, oh, I only sent you one, the other one broke its wing. When that molted out, that was a cock. So he's after sending me 3 cocks with a price of 3 cocks. So, you know, it was just, I have the 3 cocks there now, and they take up a full aviary. As a matter of fact, I shouldn't have them together in the breeding season. The 3 young birds, but they're taking a whole aviary on me now, which I would have loved to be breeding them, because they are a lovely bird. They will settle down, and one of them is coming nearly up to me when I'm feeding it, you know. And I feed them the same as the other birds, except I give them seed, a mixed seed and peanuts, like I give to the nuthatches as well. They'll eat a mixed seed and peanuts as well with their softbill food, you know.
Oh, fantastic. I didn't think you could actually keep woodpeckers, so when I saw that you'd got some...
yeah, but they're only coming into Ireland. They've only been seeing it, they've only started breeding in Ireland since 2007. There's only 1 pair they caught in Wicklow, but now it's about 30 nests they found last year and this year. So they're starting to spread into Ireland. They haven't been in Ireland at all. The first ones that I was ever seen in Ireland was around 2000, year 2000, 2007. I think they found the first nest, you know.
Yeah. Oh, wow.
They are spreading around Ireland now.
Oh, brilliant, mate. That's fantastic. Now, how do you house these woodpeckers then? I imagine that a wooden aviary isn't ideal for these guys.
No. I see, my aviaries were for parrots originally, and I took all the steel frames down and opened them straight out across my garden. So some of my aviaries are 8 meters by 5 meters.
Yeah.
The ones I have the woodpeckers in, I had the blackbirds in last year, and the thrushes. And I have, it's 5 meters by 2 meters. It's really not big enough for them, but I have any amount of logs, and I went out collecting 6 foot, 7 foot, 6 inch, 9 inch. They're in bits. They'll just burrow into everything. And I put small branches. I put logs at every corner and one in the center, and nailed them all together with big branches.
Yeah.
They've gone through everything. They just chew away all the time, you know.
Oh,
it's
wow.
a fantastic bird to watch now, you know.
Yeah, but they are really something.
Next year. Actually, the finish of the story about getting them, I was talking to a guy down in Greece that I got onto that breeds them.
Yeah.
And I was talking to him one Sunday night, and I said to him, I was telling him the story about getting me the 3 cocks. And I told him how I got them off. And he said he sorted it out. And the next morning, my money was back in the bank. So the chap in Greece knew something about something in Holland that I didn't know, but he got me back my money, and he told me that they'll get me hens this year.
Oh, brilliant. So, wow.
It's nice to hear a story like that after a while.
Yeah, but most definitely. 3 pairs of woodpeckers next year then, is that the aim?
Oh, hopefully. Well, no, I won't be able to keep them all. You need loads of space, and you can only keep them one in an aviary at a time.
Yeah.
So the market there, I hope, if they do. I don't know anybody else breeding them. I don't know anybody in Britain breeding them. Actually, when I said I had them, when I got the first pair in, I was saying, oh, I have a lovely pair. I'm looking forward to this, breeding these next year. And a couple of people said to me, where do I get them? To be looking for them, you know?
Yeah.
So there will be a market there for them, even in Britain, you know?
Yeah, I imagine that should some come available, they won't be lasting. You know, you'll sell them quite quickly. Now, you said about you keeping blackbirds. Then, what mutations do you currently keep?
Well, as I say, with the blackbirds, I bought them in as a blue and a satin there, and I only bred them last year. It was the first year I had them. Now, what I got off them was another satin net and 2 grizzlies, as they call them, with lovely birds, and I sent them back. But the guy that I got them off doesn't know the mutation recessive or dominant.
Yeah.
I don't know what the parents were, and he didn't know. So hopefully next year I'll get back two youngsters off him, which would be the grandparents of the pair I have. And I'll
Yeah.
put them back and see if they got. But I'll have to study that. I never was any good at the genetics of mutations, you know.
Yeah, fair enough. I mean, did you,
It's a specialized thing in birds, you know.
yeah, did you say that what you bred off them was then, what was it, three cockbirds, two,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah,
Three cockbirds, two of them are grizzlies, and one was a satin.
right. So, well, to me, just off top of my head, then that would mean that your satinet's got to be a dominant. Was it a satinet hen? Did you say?
Yeah, no, cock.
Oh, satinet cock. So,
Freedom of cocks, you know. I think
yeah,
the blue I have has to be dominant, doesn't it?
yeah. Well, I imagine so, because if you're putting a satinet cock to a blue hen and you're getting satinet cocks, it's got to be dominant, I imagine. So, well, that's
Yeah.
one of them. And
The
then,
cock is the blue one, the hen is the satinette. The right
oh
have.
right, okay. Yeah,
So
so
it'd be a blue dominance, wouldn't it?
yeah, yeah, I think so. Then I'll have to look into that. It's yeah,
Okay.
yeah,
Yeah.
brilliant. Now we're gonna go on to your nightingales. Obviously, did you
Yeah.
say you've only got the hen left now?
I've only the hen left, but I have a hen, a cock boot, you know. Actually, I
Yeah.
was talking to a guy just the other night that has a cock singing his heart out and he's now a hen for it. So we
Oh,
were deciding who'd do the swap.
yeah,
He said he's loving the cock singing, so because they are brilliant, you know. So he said we'll have to wait to Stafford and we'll toss a coin to see which of us gets the pair, you know, if we
yeah,
don't get a pair in the meantime, you know. So
yeah,
yeah, they're a beautiful board. They're not people. It was the first time I've seen them, and they're beautiful singers, but they're a plain enough board, lovely style shape on them, but they're not brightly colourful. You know, they have that like a glossy brown back and a kind of a grey down the front. But they are a lovely stand board, a lovely position board. But they're not like if you want colour, they're not
yeah.
a colourful board. You know.
So more just for, well, I guess it's the appeal of having, you've got a nightingale there, and also the song of it.
The song of the cock is unreal. It's beautiful, you know. So
Yeah,
that's what I like with the night. That's the Softbills. That's the beauty of them. Is sitting in the aviary with them. I was sitting benching the aviary, and I sit watching them and listening to them singing. You know, you can't beat it. You know,
brilliant.
that's the way to be retired.
Yeah. So uh, obviously you haven't yet bred them, but what is your plan for breeding them? What sort of nest sites would you expect them to use?
They'll use the same as they're in the same bracket as the red starts and blue throats, which I have. They're in the same uh,
Family,
gene.
is it
Yeah,
something like that? Yeah.
they all eat the same. They all live on the same stuff. I tell you what, I have a great book here for anybody that's interested. This guy, Kevin Mean, it's in the 70s he done this, but he's bred every Softbill. He also has things in it about bullies and everything else. It's a fantastic book. Anybody that wants to go into Softbills, that's the book, you know.
Yeah.
It's well known, you know.
But that's fantastic. I'll put the link in the description to this video for that book,
Yeah.
so people can get that. That's that would
And on the
definitely be
internet,
very
you know.
useful. Yeah. So obviously I presume that it would be sort of a cockatiel nest box then, which you're referring
Yeah,
to the
but
nightingales.
most of them, like the blue throats will go into a half box. I use a half box. I put every kind of a pan in. I put a nest pan, a Northern Canary nest pan. I put cockatiel boxes. Now for the nuthatches, I screw back onto the front because they want to climb around it. Now at the moment, one of my nuthatch is actually looking in the box. It's the female, I think. The hen is not interested in him at all, but at the moment he's looking in the box. But they like a bark on the front, and it's like a cockatiel box. But you have to have plenty of muck around for them because they close the hole just for themselves to get in and out, and they build them circle around it, you know. So there's no problem getting muck this weather, you know.
Yeah, yeah. Well, the weather's been foul at the moment, so yeah, plenty of that available, I'm sure.
You also you don't put anything in the box. You leave like brown old leaves around and chippings. Again, there are plenty of chippings from the woodpeckers, and
Yeah,
they deflect them and put them into the nest, and they make their own nest out of that. You know, where
yeah,
the red starts are different. They bred in a cockatiel box for me last year, but they build the tiniest little nest themselves out of anything straw or the coconut hair, and they brought a beautiful little nest, very tiny. Actually, when I looked in it, I thought it was only two youngsters. And I was taking them out to ring them. I couldn't believe there was six of them. I just kept picking them up, and the nest was so small. They were all sitting on top of each other. It was
Yeah.
my first time with them, and I was fascinated to see that.
Oh, that's amazing. I'd love to see that. I'm gonna have to try these sorts of birds. I had a pair of black redstarts early last year.
Yeah,
Didn't manage to get them to the breeding season. Sadly, they're an absolute nightmare. But anyway, so with your soft bills, then we've spoke about them being aggressive towards each other when you first pair them. So do you like keep the cocks and hens separate over the breeding season? Is that sorry over the winter even to then introduce?
some of them. The skylarks can stay out. The bearded reedling can stay out. I leave a lot of mine fern out. Red starts, nightingales, blue throats, yeah, they have to come in. They have to be separated because they're all migrating birds. When they migrate, they split up, and obviously the cocks apparently come back first, and they start looking for their area, and then the hens arrive. So you have to keep them separated for the winter. And even introducing them through a divided panel in cages. I don't think it's good enough for them to see each other like that all the time. They still, when they get into the breeding area, they can kill each other. So the trick is the two separate flights. Now the hen I had in the separate flight last year, she was in with mixed other birds, so it didn't matter. She still took interest in him, and he was in a mixed flight. So it's the flights for Softbills is the best.
Yeah.
And you can have a small flight with 2 or 3 pairs. Like you can have a 6 foot by 3 foot with a skylark and the reedlings and stuff like that. They'd manage in a small flight like that and give you the interest in Softbills.
Yeah.
A lot of fellas in seed eaters are afraid of Softbills. In my day, when we were breeding the seed eaters and the canaries back in the 70s and early 80s, the 60s, we were afraid of Softbills because there was no food for them. We didn't know how to feed them. This guy Duke used to use ox hearts and all that kind of stuff. Today you can buy the food straight in any pet shop, and they're easier to keep.
Brilliant. Yeah. So wow, much easier than but back then. So, we'd touched this on this earlier as well, but did you say you keep some of them like sort of in a bird room on light and heat, for example, over the winter months?
No heat. You don't need heat. You need the long hours. The light comes on at 7 in the morning and goes off at 7 in the evening. You need that. It's to give them the long hours eating. They need the food. That'll keep them warm. You don't need any kind of heat. I have a fairly big bird room, 2 banks of cages, 4 foot high, and I give them about a 2 cage fly for each bird.
Yeah.
As I go around, and you don't. There's only certain ones I bring in, and the ones that need the light I bring in. The reedlings, skylarks, blackbirds, they'll all stay outside. Thrushes, they're all right outside. The nuthatches I'll bring in this year. Of course, the nightingales to be in. Whereas, I don't know what else I have that I'll bring in, but they're the birds I definitely bring in. But as I say, thrushes and blackbirds and all that, and reedlings can all stay outside, and skylarks.
Yeah.
I love the skylark. I've actually have 2 hand-reared baby skylarks I took in yesterday.
Oh,
I went out yesterday morning. They're on the floor all the time anyway.
Yeah.
In the evening, and they were 3 days old. They were ready for feeding when I had a quick look down at them. Went back at about 1 o'clock to give them the second feed. Looked in, the 2 of them were frozen, no food. So I took them up, and you usually walk around with them in your hand, and I have them now feeding them. I had to take them because I knew once you were cold like that, she wasn't going over to them. She wasn't going to go back to the nest.
Yeah.
So I'm ready to 2 of them there now. I got them wrong yesterday as well when I brought them in, so.
Yeah. Oh, well.
Okay.
Yeah. At least.
Board one.
Yeah.
Do these things,
Yeah, at least you save them. That's
Yeah,
great.
yeah.
So actually, just on that with the skylarks, then, so they nest on the floor,
Oh
right?
yeah,
Don't they?
yeah.
So, what do you offer anything specific for them, or do you literally just let them, find an area on the floor where they're comfortable to make their own?
Yeah. See, I've open flights with grass and plants and all, but I go around the walls and the corners and throw handfuls of hay, straw,
Yeah,
hay mostly. And then when they feel like it, they'll make a nest in that. It's amazing. You just make a little cup in it overnight. You don't even know where they
yeah,
are. That's one of the troubles with them. You have to watch everywhere. If the hen is missing at all, you start looking around everywhere to see where she is, and she can be anywhere. I'm breeding them for about 4 years now. I've 2 pair down this year, but they're a great bird to have in an aviary because you say they keep low. The cocks are great singers. They'll sit up in one of the nest boxes around the place and sing their heart out, or go up on a rope and sing their heart out, or whatever you have. And he'll also sing on the ground, So
yeah.
the singing, the cock singing is fantastic.
Oh, brilliant.
Yeah.
Yeah, going to say they're an interesting bird, obviously, but it's a ground nester, so bit different to the sort of general sort of birds that
Another thing
we often
with the
see.
skylark is their back claw has a very long nail. And a lot of people say, does you want a Dave club? But it's part of it. The cocks have a longer nail and the hen have a long nail. It must be something to do with their balance on the ground. But their nail on their back claw is much longer than the rest of them, straight out.
Yeah.
So
Wow, that's interesting. Bit different that as well.
and something else I'd like to say to you. The woodpeckers, their feet are different as well. They've 2 forward and 2 back because
Oh,
they don't
really?
sit on a perch. They stand on a perch. They stand along the perch or stand along the wall. So they've 2 claws forward and 2 claws back. And they
Yeah.
use their tail actually to balance when they're standing up, to strengthen their tail when they're doing all the banging with the back of the muscle in the back of their neck.
Oh,
But
wow.
it's the tail and the claws that hold them tight to the wall while they're doing that.
Yeah. I imagine, I imagine when it comes to ringing baby woodpeckers, that must be a bit difficult.
I
You know,
don't know.
but,
It's only like,
yeah,
yeah.
exactly.
Well,
Hopefully,
that must be done because the chap in Greece that they came from, there's a few fellas down there breeding them. They have them all roamed, so it must be handy enough. I'll get more information off him when I start
yeah.
getting the hands in.
Yeah, that would be brilliant. Now, when it comes to ringing soft bills generally, do you cover the rings?
No, no.
No, just
I never did. And any boards I kept, I never cover rings. Uh, it's hard enough to get rings on them without covering as well. And I know a lot of fellas do it. They used to do it with the little tubes and thing, but I've never done it. I know I've
yeah,
lost a few boards being thrown out, or sometimes you find the rings missing and you have to keep ringing them. The ring disappears if you put it on too early, of course. But no, I haven't got that much trouble with them throwing them out. I know the canaries and all will do it. You get the odd board that will do it.
yeah,
Uh, I haven't found that trouble that much. With
yeah.
the since I went back into Softbills. I
No,
had it
fair
with
enough.
over the years that with them as well. So all boards will more or less you get 1 or 2 cocks or hens that will do that. It's something strange. One thing that I learned years ago, and is when you're going to ring them, when they have eggs, they're going to have youngsters. The little link you get with the rings on it,
Yes.
and it'll hold on. I did lie that beside the nest on a hook, so she can throw that out and back, but she get used to the colour of the ear, and she get used to that colour when you put it onto the youngster.
Oh wow, wow. That's I've not thought of that. That's a really good idea, actually.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh,
Because you always have a few spare ones. You always have a load over after a year that you're unexpected to have.
yeah.
But yeah, if they get used to the colour, if you just hang it there, even if you have it hanging beside it, she'll see that colour when she's going in and out. So when it's on the youngsters, then
Got
uh,
you.
you know,
Oh wow, that's brilliant. I'm gonna have to try that actually. I've got some hardbills that do like to throw youngsters, so yeah, I'll definitely be giving that a go. Thank you for the tip. Um, Now, obviously you've only been in this 6 years, but would you be interested in keeping waxwings?
love to. Or again, they're not a native board; they're a foreign board. Uh,
Well, yeah, Scandinavian, aren't they? I believe.
yeah, but
Come over here in the winter.
they wouldn't be here in shows. They wouldn't be classed as a native board. You have to breed in Britain, Scotland, or Wales, or Ireland to be classed as a British or native board here in Ireland, as we call them. We call
Yeah,
them native. You call them British. Eurocods and Eurasians. So, it's the same bird, but they have to be bred in Britain or Ireland to be classed as a native bird here.
Yeah.
I showed blue throats last year at a show, and the judge misclassed them. He said they're not a native bird, but they have been recorded twice of breeding in Britain. They've only been recorded twice,
Oh,
but that
right.
makes them the native bird. Once he's done it once.
Yeah.
So I'm all right with the woodpeckers if I breed them.
Yeah, well, that's I think it'd be something to try. Obviously, as well, not commonly kept the waxwings either. Now we've touched on this slightly. So you use quite a few different styles of nest pan. Is there like nest sites? Is there anything do you find maybe one species goes for just one sort of type, or is it literally could be anything every year?
Well, the reedlings will breed in anything, and it's the same thing. You don't know where they are. You have to watch them. Sometimes when they have young, even the cock will start building nests somewhere else, and then she'll follow them after that. But I lost 2 rounds of reedlings this year already, and 1 round was already wrong. But yet they will. It's the weather in April. I lost nearly everything. But they use any kind of the half box with the center open, like 2 inches down or 2 inches up, or 3 inches down, 3 inches up, and they'll all build in that. Even me Forden building that. I put cockatiel boxes around in any size hole, and then they're handy with the hatch to have a look at them. Nest pans I put around, and a few of these small. I've had the white wagtails bred in. You get them in the pet shops, like a small basket hanging with a T-joint over it.
Oh yes, yeah.
Yeah, I hang a few of them around as well. And the white waxbills or the white wagtails, they bred in that last year for me. I lost a cock this year coming into the breeding season. So that's the joys of it.
Oh God, yeah. It's always just before the breeding season, is it?
Yeah,
When you're not going to be able to
I
find
come
one.
to the breeding season with odd boards, but it just
Yeah.
happens you do end up with them.
Yeah, well, hopefully it works out all right next year. So, with your flights then, obviously they are quite large. Have you got them completely heavily planted then, or do you try and keep it sort of minimal?
Yeah, well, I've been planting them for the past couple of years. I've planted some bamboo, but some of the bamboo I have in pots because it spreads like wildfire.
Yeah.
I've only one big one in and I put nest pans in the center of that. For some of the foreign boards, or even the long-tailed tits will breed in them. In the middle of them, they make it all cobwebs and stuff. I had the long-tailed tits, but I lost them. Yeah, I put it. Sorry, what was that question?
So
Plant.
yeah,
Yeah, I plant every. But I also buy in the temporary camouflage and put that around as well. And when it goes off, replace it. But thankfully, the trees I put in and the bushes I put in, all that stuff is coming on well, and it's getting thicker and thicker for me each year. So yeah, hopefully I'll just be able to use that.
Got you. So it's still like obviously you basically building the forest inside of an aviary and it's still maturing every year.
And the aviaries I have were parrot aviaries. I told you they were steel with concrete floors and a PVC across a lot of them. It was 3 meters long. So I took the fronts off them and went another 5 meters across the garden, and that's where the planted is. I put rolled out grass, and every morning I throw mixed seed because you all eat mixed seed, like siskin seed with all the small mix in it, and all the birds will go over it. But and they don't eat will start growing in the grass, and you get just another mixture of camouflage down there, for stuff,
Yeah,
but that's
brilliant.
Yeah.
Wow. So how tall are your flights then?
Most of them are 7 foot, maybe some of them are maybe 8 foot.
Yeah.
The one 8 foot by 8 meters by 5 meters is the biggest one I have, and then I've two are 6 foot 2 meters wide by 7 meters long, and then I've a 4 meter by 4 meter one. I've a couple of small ones then after that.
Yeah.
But individual boards, because the likes of the blackboards now are in a smaller flight. It's about 10 foot by 4 foot or 5 foot, and that's about 8 foot high as well. That gives them plenty of room to go up and down.
Yeah, I guess the height's helpful keeping them fit as well. Obviously,
Yeah,
flying
yeah,
up,
yeah.
is yeah ideal. Now, have you ever tried cage breeding softbills, and or do you know anyone who cage
I don't.
breeds?
No, I've never done. It'd be nice to be able to breed some of them indoors, but I don't think so because most of them like. Another thing is I've some PVC on the corners where the plants are, where you can nest in different areas,
Yeah,
and the open part is all open. I've half-inch wire under the battens and inch steel heavy wire on the outside, and there's trees around me. All the trees fall and the leaves get trapped, and the
yeah.
birds all eat the insects out of that. They're up
Oh,
there all the
right.
time, all of them. And then there's insects falling out. And even now and then, I get a leaf blower and blow them all, waking them all up, and then insects fall out of them. And you can
Yeah,
see them all going after the stuff and eating them, you know. And it's amazing they're picking up insects all the time that we don't see, you know. They're all,
yeah,
especially the little reedlings are great. They just keep dragging stuff out and picking all the time. They're a very active little bird, great bird to keep. Great bird to start with, the bearded reedlings, you know.
yeah. But that's great. Obviously, it sounds like they're much better suited then to an outdoor aviary compared to a
Yes,
cage.
yes, yes.
So, well, it might be something in time.
Easier to look
Yeah.
after too. You don't have to keep cleaning them and painting them and disinfecting in them and mite and
Yeah,
all. You don't get that much trouble with them. You might get some mite in a nest pad outside, but I've never had that trouble.
yeah,
Out in the air. That's one of the and the indoor. All my cages are plastic. The plastic double type that you can get. I
yeah.
have banks of them, like 12 bank by 5 high, and then another 6 bank by 5 high. And once a year, I strip them down singly and bleach them all. So the white plastic bleach, you don't get, and in between them, and I'm packing them back together, I put the soap, carbolic soap, in between them, just in case mite does come in them. So,
Yeah,
yeah, I find that you don't have mite with them either. If you treat them right, once or twice a year, I strip them completely down, wash them in bleach, and that, put them back together.
really. Yeah, and I guess it keeps them in almost new condition,
And
doesn't it? So.
over the years with it, making the wooden ones and painting them every year, it was a lot of work, but it's easier now. I find trying to make life easier for myself after all the years. Every
Yeah,
year you improve on some idea that you get. So,
yeah. Well, definitely. I mean, I prefer the UPVC cages compared to the wooden ones. Just yeah,
yeah,
easy to clean, less maintenance. Don't have to spend
yeah,
ages
yeah.
painting. Um, Now, what's your opinion on soft-bill hybrids, and would you ever try and attempt them?
I've thought of it, and I thought it was going to happen this year, where it started to come into. I had a pair of blue throats in where the red starts were. I mean, the cock killed the hen. I couldn't catch him on the fly. I left him there. I've a better system now, but he started chasing the hen blue start.
Oh right.
Blue throat, sorry, the red start started chasing the blue throat hen. So I had to catch him and take him out because I didn't want them to mix. So I wanted to pair the blue throats. I've never bred them yet,
Yeah.
and they seem to be looking. They go into an open box and about a meter from the ground.
Oh right.
So I put them around. I put small down low as well, and it looks like there's somebody using it at night time because there's a bit of depth in the straw that I threw in it. So hopefully they'll be using them. They seem to be interested in them.
Yeah. Oh, that's great. I mean, soft-bill hybrids are a rarity anyway.
Yeah, yeah.
I've seen it not in person. I've never seen one in person, but I think there's blackbird cross song thrush that's come out,
Oh, yeah.
and I think meadow pipit cross pied wagtail. So, yeah, sort of rarity things. So maybe something to try in time. But
Well, I'm not a great believer in mutations, or crossing.
yeah, yeah, fair
No,
enough.
I
Yeah,
like
well,
the normal board even.
yeah, well, I guess it's not for everyone. And yeah, just having the original sort of normal coloured birds is
Well, the only reason I had a mutation blackboards for Sean would probably try and breed Paul Howard down in Cork. He had a lovely uh, mutation thrush that won
yeah,
last year.
oh,
It's just a
fantastic.
crack.
Yeah,
Mutation would be his mutation, I hope. But
yeah,
I love going to the shows again too.
yeah.
I
Well,
love doing that with the parrots.
Yeah, well, I'm going to say, so do you show your soft bills often then?
Well, as I just started doing that because the son shows all the natives himself. So he said to me, "Why don't you start showing again?" Because I used to show in the 70s and 80s and 60s. And yeah, I started showing these about 3 years ago, and they seem to get very popular. People are very interested in them, and people that never seen some of the birds that I put up in the shows, they got interested. And the fact that they're dressed cages, it gives people a better vision of the birds, especially people that's coming in to see birds that don't know
Yeah.
anything about birds. They're looking at rows of canaries or rows of budgies or rows of uh, goldies, and they don't know much about it. But when they see a dressed cage, it attracts them.
Yeah.
Attracts a lot of the birdmen as well.
Yeah.
So yeah, I will keep showing now that I started again, and hopefully a few more lads will go into soft bills and start showing them, because the
Yeah.
shows are great. It's great to get back into the shows and meet all the guys and have a chat at the shows.
Yeah, I hope so. Obviously, that was one of the big things is that there's not a great deal of information on breeding soft bills and keeping them out there. So actually, this call is, I'm hoping, will be a bit of something to, a reference point for people getting into
Yeah,
soft bills. That's something I'd like to do.
yeah.
And just on that with the dressed cages, they look great. So always something nice to
In
see.
England, they're getting very big with the soft bills. They had an all soft bill show, and
Yes.
the British Softbill Society have a show of their own as well. So it is. Uh, I've been over there and it's great. So it'd be even if you get softbills shown here at the open shows or the native shows, it'd be fantastic. Other people
Definitely.
showing it.
Yeah, well, let's hope moving in the right direction with it, and that will become something in the future. Now, with showing your soft buds, have you found that it has a negative impact on them? Perhaps they get more stressed compared to something.
No, I find out now just as easy. See, the white wagtails, they were coming to me hand for the mealworm.
Yeah,
And when they're in the shows, they don't. The only ones that is very nervous is the skylarks. They're very nervous. The red starts and the blue throats are very calm in the show cage. They're even calm in the aviaries, but they're very calm in the show cage. Uh, no, I find that the birds, the soft bills, are just as good as the other birds, canaries and native hardbills. They'll settle down. Some of them settle down easier because you often see redpolls and linnets bashing up and down the show cage.
yeah,
I mean, I showed the blue throats and red starts and uh, uh, what do you got, long-tailed tits, whitetails, and they were all calm. They were all calm in the shows, and they were all calm. And I brought them back. I had no problem with them. So I
yeah.
don't see any problem with showing soft bills. It's not as if you're stressing them or not. You put them back into the aviaries and they're fine. But in saying that, if I'm going to show them, I'll bring them into the cages for a while first and let them
Yeah.
relax more than in the flight.
Yeah, well, I was gonna say it must be much easier catching them in a cage than in a flight the morning of a show. So,
Well, I have a system of a corridor where I had all the parrot cages
oh
and
right,
all in a row. So I have a hatch on top of them or the doors, and I walk into the aviary. The birds will go out the doors into the corridor. I can close the corridor, and I have just a corridor to collect them, and I have them so I can catch them that way easy enough.
oh
You know.
wow, yeah,
So it's,
much easier.
yeah.
Yeah, brilliant. Now, for a novice beginning with soft bills, what species would you recommend? What would be your go-to for beginners?
Well, it depends on what size you want to breed them in. As I say, you could breed uh, 2 or 3 pair in a small flight, like maybe 6 foot, 8 foot by a meter wide, 3 foot, 4 foot wide. You could get the bearded reedlings in there. You could put and skylarks, and even a pair of wagtails. The only thing is the wagtails need water. You know,
Yeah,
uh, a lot of them do need it. I have a system with 3 of my big aviaries. I have I work off rainwater. I've no flowing water. I've no tap water. And what I have is 3 ponds in
right.
each aviary, one flowing down into the other. The last one I have a 50-gallon drum buried in the ground, and I
Yeah,
pump it. I pumps it up to the first one, and when it comes down through the tree, and goes back into the barrel. we have a bucket of charcoal under the lid, and the water goes back into that, it purifies it, and it comes pumped back up to the next tree, so it keeps coming down. I have that on a timer that comes on for like 10 minutes every half hour. It'll come on for 10 minutes, and they've flowing water then all the time, and it's purified all the time.
Wow, that sounds brilliant.
Yeah, it's
just
nice,
like
it's a little system. And the trays, the ponds I have are the trays that you can buy mealworms in, the grey trays.
Oh yes, yeah.
The pipes onto them, I just covered them all around with granite stones. They look like a little pond, that's all they are.
That's amazing. Like a nice little paradise in those by the sounds of it. Well,
when you spend a lot of time in your boardroom when you're retired, you can come up with all these little things that you enjoy doing,
Yeah, they must look fabulous. So, well, credit to you for that. Well, that brings us to the end of our questions. So, is there anything else you'd like to mention? Anything else like that?
Not really. It's just I'm glad to be back at show and meeting all the guys. And as you had some experts on here that's winning year in and year out, which is great to see, and people are trying to achieve that. But I think the only down to earth boardman that goes to every time to shows and showing his birds, the best bird he has in his room is his joy, and he brings it out. If he brings back a rosette to his family with that, he might as well have won the whole show. And this is the guys that, I like to see at the shows that's going there in and out, and he might have only one good bird that win a class, and it's great to see that. They can be just, they're the real birdmen. Let's keep going back and going back.
Yeah.
So we can't afford to buy top class birds to start crossing and getting the better birds, and what they should do as well is talk to the winners and talk to the judges. Fellas don't do that. They're afraid because their bird is not the best bird that they can't approach the judge or the winner. And to bring them down to your board and say, look at that board got second or they got first. Why did the board up there beat my board? What's the difference, And the younger lads will learn from that,
Yeah, well, definitely.
When I was showing boards years ago, I used to always offer to be an assistant to a judge. And that way you see what the judge is picking. And you'll always pick up something yourself that way,
Yeah. No, got
tip for younger lads.
Yeah, well, definitely. I think speaking to a judge, like you say, I've only ever had one show season because of COVID and definitely speaking to a judge is great because you know exactly where you need to improve. Well, mate, thank you very much for coming on and giving us loads of information, loads of tips and everything. So thank you very much, and well, I'm sure we'll do another one.
When will you be showing this, Oliver?
So this will probably be next Tuesday at some point. So yeah, it's sometime within the next week.
Okay.
Yeah, brilliant.
Okay. Thanks.
Thank you. So I really hope you've enjoyed that video today and you've learned a lot about the native softbills that you could keep. Obviously, huge thank you again to Jerry for doing this video, this Zoom call with me, and sharing his knowledge and his setup and photos and videos of his own birds. So if you have enjoyed today's video and you'd like to see more, then please leave us a like and hit the subscribe down below so you don't miss any of the future content. And also, if you haven't already, make sure the link is in the description that you join the Natives in Norwich group on Facebook. You won't regret it, and I'm sure you'll be greeted with open arms, a warm welcome, and you'll really enjoy it. So thank you very much for watching, everyone, and I'll see you in the next one.